Alright, so we're back on this arrangement of All I Do by Eric Lewis. Let's see, we're going to start like right there and go through this measure till the downbeat of the next page. Yeah. So we're going to get that far. And we're just going to get that nice and tight. Alright. Cool. So we're going to put the metronome at half tempo. So full tempo is 120 to the quarter note. So we're going to go 240 to the 16th note. I don't know if you can hear that through my headphones or not. It's a little bit loud, you can probably hear it. Okay, so that was just these two measures right here. Or I guess, yeah, in this direction. The camera's flipped. But not these two measures yet. So I think actually I've kind of practiced these two measures a little bit. These ones I have not really got together yet, especially with a metronome. So I actually might turn the metronome off briefly and just kind of get the idea of it there and make sure I have it memorized, and then I can work at it with time. So I'm going to turn the metronome off. Okay. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is these two figures. This right here and this are exactly the same shape, they're just rhythmically different. So I don't have to like move my hand to a different place, I just have to fire at a different time. I guess for any of them I wouldn't really have to move my hand. I just have to think about which fingers are actually firing and releasing differently. Okay, so the big thing to be aware of there, a couple of big things. In the left hand, there's, I don't know how well you can see the keyboard here, but there's like this 9, 5, 9 kind of thing. So it's G sharp, C sharp, and F sharp. The numbers that I'm using are related from the F sharp. So F sharp is the root, C sharp is the 5th, and G sharp is the 9. So it's like this common like root 5th octave shape that you see a lot in all kinds of piano music. But just with the root on top, the octave on top extended up to the 9th. So rather than having a 5th and then a 4th, it's just 2/5. And then it's exactly that same shape again, but based off an E at the bottom. So the top note is an F sharp, middle note is a B, bottom note is an E. So I was having a little bit of a tendency to keep the C sharp for the second, like that, rather than a B. So the two things that I'm kind of keeping in mind there are that after you land on the F sharp the first time, you go up just an octave to the next F sharp. and then you want to reset your pointer finger from the C sharp to the B. That already just made it so much easier. I still haven't completely figured out the thought pattern that makes that so automatic yet, so I'm going to try to see if I can kind of figure that out. Okay, so I'm going to relate the shifting of the left hand to something that's happening in the right hand, because it's kind of like alternating. Okay. So I'm thinking right after I'm playing the G sharp with my pinky, right there, I'm immediately thinking about that F sharp there. So G sharp and F sharp are a whole step apart. In this instance, they're actually a ninth because they're separated between the hands. But in my mind, they're like very closely related. Whole step is a very specific relationship. So I want to make sure that I have a way, because I do play that G sharp in the pinky, not only right there, but also earlier, right there. Yeah? So I want to make sure that that G sharp is causing me to play this shape that time, and this G sharp is causing me to play this shape here. So I got to figure out a way to do that. So okay, so this is easy enough. So the first time you're playing the G sharp in the right hand, and that's immediately followed by a G sharp at the top of the shape in the left hand right after that. Right, like that. Oh, and this is kind of handy to notice too. So after those G sharps, then when your left hand lands on this F sharp here, ring finger in the right hand is also on an F sharp. So that's kind of nice. Okay, so I'm looking ahead to the next measure. So this kind of like, there's a lot of this melody where you have an F sharp going to a G sharp in the soprano. But what happens on the bottom changes quite a bit. So like at the beginning, you have this kind of shape where you have a B and a C sharp in the bottom of that hand, and they just are tied. Later, there you just have like these two spreading dyads, C sharp and F sharp going to B and G sharp. So that's different, even though this melody is the same. You've got that same thing right there. Right here, you have this F sharp going up to the G sharp, but the C sharp doesn't stay in, doesn't go down to a B. It goes up to a D sharp, so that's different. So that's already 3 different times in the first 2 measures. Up until then, every time that happens again, it's one of those 3. Down here, right there, it's different. So the C sharp actually spreads to both a B and a D sharp. So slightly different there. And then the tricky part, I think, is when you go from this shape to here, the D sharp is going down to a C. and the B is staying. So that's something to be aware of. So that's what that kind of little tiny micro phrase sounds like, right? Okay, so let's try this. I'm going to break this tie right here. Just play the E, that quarter note E, and play this measure going through, and then stopping on the E that would be on the downbeat of this next page right there. Right? So it'll be nicely within a measure, landing on, starting and landing on downbeats. So that'll be a good way to kind of practice that. Okay. So this E doesn't overlap with anything in the right hand. Neither of those interlap, although this F sharp in the left hand happens right after that. So let's just practice that much. Slower. Okay, I'm going to flip over the page and not look at it. Okay, I keep forgetting to put the B in there, or the D sharp, I guess. That note. So the B happens at the same time as the C sharp and the F, and then that D sharp happens right after that. Oh, okay, so this is nice because I can loop it, because it's starting on the E and it's ending on the E, so I can just say the beginning of the next measure is the same as this measure that we just played. Okay, so now I'm thinking, what happens in the measure before that? Now this is great. I think a great way to practice is when you're practicing these small sections like this, as often as you can, think about what happened right before it. What happens right before this? What happens right before this? Because that way you can start to make associations, not just on one kind of level. So like, I'm not just thinking 16th note to 16th note. I'm not just thinking 8th note to 8th note. I'm not just thinking quarter note to quarter note. I'm not just thinking half note to half note. I'm thinking not even just measure to measure, but sometimes measures at a time. If you have all of those in place, all of those associations, and it's chained not just like with links that are like 1 inch, if pieces of the chain are also linked with pieces that are like 6 inches or a foot, then the whole chain is going to be stronger and it's going to be easier to make these transitions. Really, it's really just all about transitions because you're connecting pieces to each other. So yeah. So anyway, what happens right before this measure? Okay, well I can remember 2 measures ago was when it was like the left hand and right hand kind of simultaneously played like the 16th note lines. And I remember the end of that, you land on the third of a G sharp minor chord, and in the left hand you play the root and fifth. Yeah, like that. So that helps me remember the start of that measure. Oh, right, and so now we have like the descending ninths kind of structures. Okay, so now I'm thinking about how the left hand in the previous measure and how the left hand in this current measure that I just was working on, how they relate with each other. So in that previous measure, I can picture where it is on the page. This is helpful too. When you're memorizing something, having the geographical kind of image of the page is very helpful. So remember that there's the last measure of the page, so on the bottom right. Um, so um, that's the last one that I was just working on. And then the one right before that, there's 2 measures per section, per line. So the one right before that is on the bottom left of the page. So I don't know. It's just like a little trick for kind of memorizing pieces, having a clear visual idea of where things are on the page. So this measure, that measure is on the bottom left of this page. And then that measure is on the bottom right of that page. So now we'll see if we can combine the two and think of it as one unit. Okay, so I'm remembering, I'm recalling that I have this shape twice, so I'm just kind of getting my bearings as to where that fits since I didn't work on it for a couple minutes. Okay, so I'm playing the wrong left-hand pattern there, which I think kind of makes sense because I think that happened somewhere earlier. It does. It happens at the beginning, so that's the second measure of the tune. So I need to remember that in that instance, it's like this E, B, E shape, but it's not that in this section where I'm working here, measures 10 and 11. Rather, okay, so what's the same about them? That's an interesting thing. If you have 2 different things that are really similar and they get confusing, see what's the same about them and when does it become different. So I know that, okay, here. So up here, I have this E. It's the last 8th note in this measure. You could, I guess, think of it as tied, maybe. I can't remember if that was how accurate this transcription is. I can't remember if it was tied in that measure in the recording or not. Down here, I have it written as being tied. It's still the attack of the note is still the last 8th note in the measure, so that is the same. Okay, what else is the same? this next shape that's different starts in the same place. Here it starts on beat 2. Here this also starts on beat 2. Now here's where it's different. This one, instead of going from this, well, yeah, so this one goes from this lower E up to this higher E and starts this shape. This one starts at this lower E, just like the first one, but the next phrase starts at the F sharp right above it. So that's where it gets different. And I think from there, the rest of the shape is embedded in my brain enough that I'm not going to have to think about what the other notes are. If I just remember that in the first place, I go up an octave to the other E, and the next place, I just go up a whole step from the E to the F sharp, the lower E to the lower F sharp, then I think I got it. So let's try that second to last measure on the page. Okay, so let's think about this. So this shape here is different than this one and this one. So because that's different, I'm thinking of going out to these sixths. That I want me to remind me somehow, either I want this shape or this preceding shape to somehow remind me that I'm going to the F sharp. Okay. Well, both of those shapes, this one and this one, have an F sharp going up to a G sharp in them. And this shape in the left hand starts with an F sharp going to a G sharp. So maybe I'll use that to help me remember. Let's try, see how it works. Okay, so another thing I'm realizing is that I keep forgetting to play this B in this shape right here. So I'm going to try to use, pardon me, this B here to help me remember that in both of these shapes there's a B. Okay. Okay, so that's a lot to think about. So I'm going to take a second to just kind of think about that and process it. Okay. I'm also going to read it here a little bit so I can kind of see and make sense of those patterns visually as I'm playing, so that I can kind of scaffold my memory, and then I can try to, as it kind of gains confidence in seeing those and feeling it and hearing it, then I can take the scaffolding away. So the hardest part of this whole process is working out like a mental step-by-step, where do I focus, what am I thinking, where am I looking, what am I feeling at each part. And you want this to be totally linear. You want this thought process to be completely linear so that you can go, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm looking out for. And you're not having to think two things at the same time, because scientifically, we cannot multitask. We can move from task to task very, very quickly. but we cannot pay attention to two different things at once. Um, so that's an important thing to think about. What is the actual process that I'm setting up in my brain to help me perform this so that I'm not thinking about multiple things at a time. You can make this process very, very, very detailed, um, but it has to be one-dimensional. It has to be exactly one thing at a time. And that could be a relationship between two things. A relationship between two things counts as one thing. That's the nice thing to think about. And you can chunk bigger things into one meaningful piece of information. That's why the human brain is so cool. Okay, so let me think about in the left hand here what's going on. So with this E9 kind of shape, maybe I'll kind of relate that to this like 2, 3, 5 kind of shape. Let's try that. So that seems to make the most sense because I'm thinking in this left hand lower register of the keyboard already if I'm relating this shape to that shape. So I don't have to move my brain and I can kind of let my right hand go on autopilot. So let's try that. Okay, I messed up the last part, but that part that I was interested in at that moment worked just fine. Okay, let's try it without. The moment of truth. Yeah, okay, so that helps. Let's drill that a few times. Okay. Okay, so cool. So this is kind of giving me a thought process that I think is helpful. So the first thing I'm thinking is left hand is root fifth. At the same time, I'm thinking, not at the same time. So I'm thinking that before I'm playing that. I'm thinking root fifth. After I think that, but still before I play it, I'm thinking the B is happening at the same time as the G sharp. Okay. This is tricky. Okay, so let's try this. This is maybe something that might be helpful. I'm gonna try thinking about. I'm gonna count how many reminders are necessary for this. So, in other words, how many useful, meaningful pieces of information there are. So I'm thinking of the B as its own thing, this shape is its own thing, 2, 3, that thing is its own shape, that left-hand thing is its own shape, so that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so this shape again. So that's 6. And then 7 in the right hand. I'm going to use the paper here. So, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So, let's see, that note is 1, that shape is 2, that's 3, that shape is 4, this shape is 5, this shape here is 6, this shape is 7, this shape is 8, so here we have 2 right-hand shapes in a row here. 2 right-hand shapes in a row, and then that was 8, I think. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. Then this one is 9. Then I think this whole thing here can be 10. And then this is 11. So there's 11 pieces of information, which, okay, so we're going to get into psychology here. So George Miller wrote this paper in, I think, 1956. Or it might have even been a book, I'm not sure. I think it was a paper first. But it was called The Magic Number 7 plus or minus 2, which is about the number of meaningful pieces of information that you can store in your working memory at one time. And so it's about 7 plus or minus 2. I think that's like the very limit. So like when I'm trying to memorize something or learn something, I'm trying to think of chunks that are like 3 or 4 or maybe 5 pieces of information. Like 5 is about as many as I want to get. Like 6 or 7, like that starts to really kind of stretch how much I can do. So if I can chunk things into pieces so that there are 3 or 4 of them, that's like great. So there's 11 pieces of information here, so I have to figure out a way to break this down into just 3 or 4. So that's kind of how we're thinking about this. So since these right-hand shapes are the same, I think I can maybe think of that whole thing is one thing. I'm going to try to make that all be one piece. Okay, then okay, so what that does is it combines 5 pieces of information. This, 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 and this, and that, all into one piece of information. So 5, that's about the limit. And I think that actually kind of works. So maybe 5 is okay in this instance. I can chunk those 5 pieces into one piece. So I'm using my working memory to keep track of those 5 pieces, and I'm encoding them into my long-term memory by chunking them into one. So and it's interesting like how you think visually and how you think kinesthetically and how you think orally. Like orally, that's little enough information that I can think of it as one piece. So that's kind of nice. Okay, so then next I'm going to think of that, this, and this, and this, all as one piece. So how many pieces is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. Great. So Okay. So now this is interesting. It's different than the last one because the last one was kind of like both right, left, right in terms of the individual pieces that I was comprising it of. This one is left, right, right, left, right, kind of. So it's interesting that you have the two rights in a row. It's very kind of hard to explain. What I'm talking about is, so this here is like a left hand piece, this here is a right hand piece, and then it's followed by another right hand piece. So these two right hand pieces are kind of in a row, rather than kind of alternating like they are here. So like left, right, alternating. So left, right, right. So that's kind of different. So these four can kind of, I guess five if you're counting this note can be kind of thought as their own thing. And then these 4/5 can kind of be thought of as their own thing, but it's different shape. It's like a rainbow, and then it goes pops back up. But this one, it like goes down and up and down and up. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. A little bit more big picture, so kind of helpful. So that was very close. I actually missed, I think, a note or two, but that helps me think kind of more big picture, and you can kind of combine big picture and small picture. Okay. Yeah, this video is getting long, so I'm going to call it there. But in my own time, what I'm going to be doing is that process with these two measures, and I'm going to be combining them with these two measures here so I can have this whole 4-measure chunk and have that learned. So I hope this video has been helpful. No metronome, that's okay. Sometimes you can practice without a metronome. I think it's good to practice with a metronome after you've learned something intellectually so you can tighten it up. But sometimes no metronome is helpful. Anyway, I hope that this video has been interesting and helpful to y'all. If you have questions or feedback, I'm trying to figure out the YouTube thing slowly but surely. I'm kind of okay with it being a little bit unpolished right now. But hopefully over time I can figure out some kind of logistic things and make it look nicer and be more accessible. But I really want it to be really in the weeds with what I'm thinking in my process of how to actually learn stuff rather than just showing you, here's this thing, go figure it out. Like, how do you actually learn things? That's the point of this endeavor. So, yeah, I hope that you found this useful in that regard. Have a good day.